To introduce myself, I'm Paul Chivers. I was for the last 3 years Head of Innovation and Sustainability for the PPE, both in the Department of Health and Social Care as well as in NHS supply chain, and currently now taking on the same challenge as an independent consultant. So what we're going to cover today is, for those of you that were here last year, I spoke last year about the work that we were doing. We're also going to give a quick reminder about that. We're going to also look at what we've done in the year since then, the current activity that we're undertaking, and a bit of a so what. So a reminder, last year, there was a picture like that up. It's been at a number of presentations. We talked about the moving from single-use plastics, PPE, to reusable plastics. That picture there, obviously, most of you will recognize single-use apron, single-use visor, and single-use Type 2R mask, all of which contributes to the massive waste and the plastic problem that we have. And what we wanted to do is in the year and continue going forward is to move away from single use and move to more reusable and sustainable products, both from a financial as well as an environmental benefit. We touched on some of the achievements. We created the transparent face mask specification, and this time last year we had 3 transparent face masks that were fully compliant. And when I say fully compliant, that means they've been through the technical and regulatory assurance process, as well as being assessed against the MHRA's essential health and safety requirements. That's not to say that other products on the market are not compliant, but of the ones we've looked at, we list now 9, and there'll be a slide to show that in a little while. We list 9 of them that have been through that process, and those manufacturers and suppliers have worked quite hard to make sure that they have fully complied with all the requirements. We also published the P3 decontamination, so when we talk about a reusable respirator instead of the white FFP3s, for those that don't know what a P3 mask is, it's one of those. One of the problems of having one of those is you can't hear me. One of the things we have identified is we have all the right components out there, but they're not in the right place. So if you put a speech diaphragm into a P3 mask, it makes it a lot easier to hear people and to communicate. We also looked at, like I say, the ways to decontaminate those masks. Currently, the only guidance about decontaminating one of these was done by Dr. Felicity Holmes and the decontamination team, and it's through a washer disinfector. Not everybody's got ready access to a washer disinfector, and therefore what we'll cover today is some of the other areas we're looking at to try and make reusable products accessible to more people and to safely clean and decontaminate them. We touched on last year about what the next steps were and what the challenges were. Next steps was, this time last year, we were moving into supply chain. We wanted to look at a suite of decontamination, as we've just touched on, not only for the P3 mask, eye protection, and other reusable products, so that we can, as I say, have a catalogue of decontamination and cleaning processes to fit in with the various areas in which they'd be used. Some of the challenges, so having been doing this job for 3 years with no budget, as a temporary team, it's been quite a challenge. And we've said all along that if you want to do sustainability and innovation properly, then you do need to fund it appropriately. That said, obviously it didn't land very well because I'm now doing it independently because they didn't want to fund us anymore. But we'll carry on with that challenge. We then looked at segregation and recycling of PPE last year, and we looked at the waste streams and everything else, which is quite pertinent, given that on the 7th of March, the new waste strategy for NHS England was launched. And Liam Hogg, who was presenting that waste strategy at the launch, as he portrays it, in the future, do you expect to see spaceships towing around about a couple of 100 orange waste bags? We've got to do different ways, reduce the waste, and change what we do. I talked about some of the benefits and the reminders of what the benefits can be. Now, that's just in the PPE world there, and there are a number of things in there that you see. If we move to reusable products, and we always say just 80%, because there will be 20% cases where people will say single use is still the preferred option. But as you can see, there are significant financial savings, large waste reduction, and also carbon footprint. And it runs around about £91 million in reduction in procurement. I'm not going to read the whole table to you, but like you say, in terms of the net zero, and given that we are now in 2023, and by 2028 to 2032, the NHS is supposed to be well on its way to an 80% reduction in its carbon footprint. PPE is a massive part of that carbon footprint, and currently it is still massively single-use plastics. So in-year progress, as I say, we had 3 transparent face masks last year that were compliant. There are now 9. Those 9 are on the screen in front of you. Just to be aware, context in the bottom right corner is not in production, but the others are. If you want details of where you can procure these, they're not available in the NHS supply chain catalogue. They may be in the future, but currently there isn't any tender activity to buy those. There is a bit of a disconnect, as we found. We've been out and about at different events, in trusts, etc., and we have procurement saying nobody needs them, nobody wants them, we're not buying them, and then we've got the end user saying that's exactly what we want and exactly what we need, particularly the ones that are the large panels as opposed to the ellipse cut out of the Type 2R. They have had really good feedback. So like I say, if you want any of the contact details, you can go direct to manufacturers and you can buy those for staff that, as far as I'm aware, for the last 2 to 3 years have been quite significantly disadvantaged. Speech and language therapists as well, mental health, learning disabilities, and the D-deaf community. We've also launched the Glove MOOC. Now, MOOC is a massive open online course. It's a proper acronym. It's not one we made up. Don't put K on the end of it because that's a derogatory term in America. It's a 1-hour education and information course. It's heavily based around the work that Great Ormond Street did back in 2017-2018, where they achieved a 33% reduction of glove usage through reducing inappropriate use. And 33% is a massive amount when you consider the slide I put up before. We're currently running at about 6 billion gloves a year in health and social care. Now, on top of that, if we could do the 33% reduction, somebody has done an audit recently in some of their departments because we're also piloting a glove dispenser that guarantees one glove comes out cuff first each time, none hit the floor. They've realized that since pre-pandemic, their glove use in those departments where they're going to pilot these dispensers has gone up by 61%. So if we could get back to pre-pandemic levels, that's 61%. I'm not saying it's across the board, but the audit that they did was quite staggering. And then if you get another 30% reduction on top of that, then you're looking at a reduction of 70-odd% in glove usage. And that's a significant contribution to the waste as well as the procurement costs. So there's a link on there. That the course, it's 1 hour, as I say, you don't have to do a 1 hour fully. You can come back to it, you can do it in 15-minute intervals, you can do it how and when you like. There are 3 main elements to it. There is an element on hand hygiene, there's an element on when you should and shouldn't wear gloves, and there's an element on the environment. And there's an introduction, and there's a survey at the end, and then you get a certificate to say you've completed it. It's available to the independent sector, it's available to anybody in the world. So I don't mind who you share that link with, but what I would encourage is not one person to do it in an organization and then tell others about it, but we want everybody to do the course, because everybody takes something different from it. We've had over 2,500 people complete it, and we get various different bits of feedback about. Some really like the environmental piece, some people really like the hand hygiene elements, and there's a link in there to the Royal College of Nursing about their hand hygiene, which is a really good feedback as well. It's not your usual death by PowerPoint annual training that you all have to do as mandatory training. It's quite interactive. There's some narration, there's freehand sketching, there are clips there. So those that know, that's Rose Gallagher from Royal College of Nursing, Ellie, who was a radiographer who used to work for me as well. And there's sort of clips, video clips, talking all the way through it. So it is quite interactive and quite informative. It also comes in multi-languages. You can also get subtitles on it as well. We also went out and we did some out and about events. I know there's a lot of suppliers and manufacturers upstairs, but we also took 13 manufacturers with us, including the likes of Bolle, Revolution Zero, Clean Air, Uvex, etc. The names are all on there at the bottom. And those guys funded 5 different site visits. They paid for 2 staff to stand there all day. They paid overnight accommodation. They funded refreshments and venue rental as well, without being permitted to make any orders. So they didn't go there to try and sell their products. They went there to try and find out what the feedback is on existing PPE. Because without feedback from you guys that wear it, manufacturers are unable to make it any better. So, as I say, those are the venues that we went to. Now, I'm not expecting you to be able to read that. However, where it's red, yellow, or grey, grey is it's okay, red is very poor, and yellow is poor. Now, the top left one there is a Type 2R mask. It's been being used for nearly 100 years, and it's got a really bad rating. So my question is, why are we still using these products? Nobody likes them. They even have problems donning and doffing in some instances. like I say, people, they don't fit, they're not fit for purpose, they don't like the construction of them, they make them sweaty, they may be shredding plastic, etc. So like I say, that's 4 of the products. There's the next 3. And when I say PPE, we didn't do gowns and aprons, we just did from the shoulder up. So it was eye protection, masks, respirators, etc., and powered hoods. And as you can see on all of them, there isn't very much positive to say about them. So we've also run a pilot on reusable Type 2R masks. And as you can see there in the top right corner, there's another bar color-coded chart where the purple, the green, and the blue are all the good, very good, and okays. And it's almost a total reversal of what we saw with the single use. So people really liked this product. They liked it so much that they all got stolen. But we had completed the pilot by the time that happened. Even different departments. We trialed it in the emergency department down at the Royal Devon in Exeter. And we chose that because it was quite sort of isolated and it didn't have a lot of footfall through there with other sort of members of staff, etc. But they did start getting people drifting in to take the masks and go and wear them elsewhere, etc. Which is good. It shows that people like it. And these masks were worn and washed 40 times. And then at the end of their life, they're taken away and they're reprocessed into something else. So there is no waste from them in that instance. Like I say, they go through the same laundry process as you would with the linens and everything else. So there's thermal decontamination. And we've worked with the MHRA for that as well. And the ambition is to make those more widely available in the longer term and do away with the single use. Those that might remember back to the slide of the benefit, we're currently running at about 1.4 billion single-use Type 2R masks across health and social care at the moment, which is, again, a mountainous amount of single-use plastics, as well as the environmental issues of them being shipped in from all over the world. We've also been working on P3s. You've seen me put the transparent one on. As I say, it's a good product. It was made because the guy that designed this, his brother's wife is deaf. However, it still is quite a bulky, not necessarily the best looking thing in the world. And also, if you were just coming around from an anaesthetic, if you're a young child, if you've got mental health problems, and I came at you wearing this, not only am I an ugly bloke coming at you, I'm an ugly bloke coming at you wearing that. So the one below that is a mask that's being made for the defence industry. And that whole blue panel is the filter. So there are no bits to bolt on, nothing like that. It's quite lightweight. It won't be black, the rubberized bits and everything. It will be white. And that panel can be, you can have patterns on it. You can make it far more user-friendly. And it will be reusable. These products last 2 years. An FFP3 is for one wear. And currently we get through something like 50 million of those. So moving to these that last 2 years, again, a significant reduction. But the problem with these is that there is nothing in the standards about how to clean them. So currently I know that people are being allowed to wipe them down with a wet wipe. Wet wipes are designed to work on highly polished, smooth surfaces like stainless steel, like ceramic tiles. They are not made to work on soft silicons, rubbers, etc. So there is some work going on to try and find alternative ways of cleaning and decontaminating these. As you can see in the table, if we can move away 80% again of single use, we can make a £5.5 million year-on-year procurement saving. There's also a higher probability of you fit testing with one of these. A single-use FFP3 has a probability is designed that it might have a 50% fit test success. These are in the more 80 to 90% chance of you getting a fit test with one of them. And as I say, we've got funding for the one at the bottom there with the blue panel. So we're getting some prototypes made. They will be available in September to then go out to users to get feedback. And the reason we get the prototypes to go out to users to get feedback is there is no point manufacturing something that doesn't work for the end user. So once they're available, we will be going around to some selected areas and asking for them to, they won't wear it in a clinical setting because it won't be compliant and it won't have been to a test house, but it will enable us to get feedback on the size, the fit of it and everything else. We're also doing some work on reusable anaesthetic masks. Now, there are reusable anaesthetic masks already available, and they're available in the supply chain catalogue. But the only way, and the instructions for use are, that you have to put it through an autoclave, which is 134 to 137 degrees. That's not very sustainable and environmentally friendly either. So we're looking at working with mask manufacturers and with UVC and with ozone and with hypochlorous acid to say, can we spray it, wipe it, and then put it into an ozone cabinet or a UVC cabinet to then safely decontaminate it so it's clean and safe to use again. But as I say, because at the moment the standards don't have anything in there about how clean something should be. So yes, you can wear this for 4 hours, you can sweat in it, you'll be saliva in it, there'll be some condensation build up. You can flick around with a wet wipe and put it down and go on holiday for 2 weeks, and then you come back and you put it back on. That's probably not best for your health. So that's why we're trying to recognize and get standards that are made for health and care workers, so that the actual standards should say how to clean it, what level of cleanliness it needs to meet after it's been used, so that everybody knows it's safe to be used. It also says in a standard you can only wear this for 1 hour and then have a 15-minute break. That means surgeons, if they're wearing them, have got to go and take a 15-minute break after an hour. Dentists are going to take a break and leave you in a chair with your mouth hanging down. It's not really conducive to health and care. So there are a number of reasons why we think there should be standards. And I've spoken to BSI about it as well. There were 3 ladies at an event I went to recently, and I've pointed out that there are some shortcomings. Reusable eye protection. Reusable eye protection has to withstand a ball bearing at 11 miles an hour. How many of you have ever had a ball bearing fired at you 11 miles an hour in a health or care setting? It's just madness. And they can only come in 2 sizes, because that's what the standard says, because all of this stuff is from Bob the Builder, it's from construction, it's heavy industry. And as I say, what they normally model them on is something called the Sheffield head. And a Sheffield head is this thing. It's the average 5'11" white male, and therefore it doesn't work for a diverse population. We're also looking at medical boots. So it came to my attention during the year that those medical boots that you might put on if you've got a sports injury, injured your ankle, etc., they are single use. So you get issued one, you wear it for a little while, your leg, your ankle, whatever gets better, and then you throw it away. And then we buy some more and they get shipped in. That's a massive amount of plastic again, and there's no reason whatsoever why they shouldn't be made reusable. It's based on ski boot technology, and nobody comes off a ski slope, unless they really don't like skiing, and throw their ski boots away. So why should we be throwing these away? You could put new sole plates on them, you could put new toe plates on them, and we're looking at ways, again, to decontaminate and clean those medical boots so that they can be reusable. Part of the problem is that the manufacturers will state one way of cleaning it. Or, you know, it might be an autoclave, washer, disinfector, etc. And we're trying to work with them to do the testing, to then say, look, we've tested this process, it works, it brings it back to a safe level of cleanliness and reduction of infection risk. So can they then change their instructions for use? Because at the moment, they do okay selling their products as they are. So we're trying to work with them to say, look, let's test ozone, let's test the UVC, let's test hypochlorous acid and alternative ways, as I say, to clean and decontaminate. And then we've got on there powered hoods. Now, some of you may have worn powered hoods. They're the ones with the big battery pack and the pump that pumps the air up into the hood. The problem with powered hoods is, again, there isn't a recognized way to clean and decontaminate most of them. I spoke to a powered hood manufacturer who told me that they had the best product on the market. And I said, well, how do I clean it? And he said, you wipe the outside down up to 200 times. And I said, well, how do I clean the inside? And he said, you don't. So nobody in this room, I'm guessing, wants to wear something 200 times that's never been cleaned. Now, don't get me wrong, they're normally cooler and you don't sweat so much in them, but it's still not a nice environment to keep putting your head back in it. And if it's a pooled asset that others might be using as well, you probably don't want to be at the end of the 200 uses when you get to wear it. We also don't know how many powered hoods we need. So I know lots of trusts, lots of organizations went out and bought their own powered hoods during the pandemic for people that couldn't fit test, people that might have religious beards or genuine reasons why they couldn't wear a respirator. But as I've said earlier, the single-use respirators, the FFP3s, the white ones, they have quite a low fit test percentage pass, and then you've got respirators, etc. But if we have better masks that are actually made with a more diverse sort of fitting and sizing, then we'd probably need less powered hoods. And then my suggestion is we don't buy powered hoods, is that we lease them and we put all the onus back on the manufacturer, because when I spoke with the DHSC recently, they're doing their PIP stop planning again, and they said, what powered hoods should they go for? And I said, don't buy any. If you buy powered hoods today, and we don't have another outbreak or another sort of pandemic for the next 3 to 5 years or 10 years, whatever, when you pull those out of storage and you then start shipping them out, the batteries will be so discharged they will not come back up and be chargeable, so they'll have to go in the bin. Elements of it may well be brittle, but also the guys that are making powered hoods, there's constant design and evolution and innovation in them. So the ones that will be around in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years' time will probably be a much superior product than what you would buy today that you're not going to use. And so when you ship it out, they'll look at it, they'll go quickly on Google, and they'll say, well, that's better than this, get rid of that, and they'll go and buy something different. So I've suggested they just let a contract whereby they can then say, right, we need 10,000 powered hoods within 2 weeks or something like that, and the maintenance and the servicing, and also the out of use, because you'll use them for maybe 3 months, 6 months. And then if demand levels drop off and you stop wearing them and the risk isn't so high, what are you going to do with them? You'll put them in a cupboard, you'll put them in a locker, you'll put them somewhere, and they'll degrade again. You won't know if they've been cleaned appropriately. You have all the same problems with batteries and everything. The NHS is not here to do maintenance of batteries, maintenance of power chargers, and maintenance of powered hoods. All right? Give that to the manufacturers that are responsible for it. So in year, other things that we've been doing, as I say, you've heard me mention the UVC cabinet. So that's that little one there on the top right, that's the white box. It's UVC, it's fully mirrored inside, and that is about the size to get a mask and a set of eye protection in. It's ideal for dentists and small areas like that, but it comes in an array of sizes, all the way up to you could have a fully opened wheelchair and put that in it. You can have a high stacking one where you can put 24, 36 sets of eye protection in it. What we're trying to do is get the evidence that says that actually that UVC can safely decontaminate and clean a mask like this after it's been wiped down with ideally what we're suggesting is hypochlorous acid and a microfiber cloth. Similarly with the ozone cabinet. Now if you Google ozone, it comes back as a lung-damaging, horrific product, which it probably is. But in these cabinets, and we took these cabinets out on the road with us, it looks like a small fridge. They come again in a variety of sizes, but it is totally safe. And these products, UVC and the ozone cabinet, only use about the same electricity as a mobile phone charger. So they're far better. Like you say, if we can move away from washer disinfectors, from autoclaves, there's also a restriction because those things are already being used quite heavily. So it's not as though you've got one stood around doing nothing. And as I say, you can put these either at point of use or, as I call it, back office, just behind the scenes. And the people that normally would be lugging loads of waste around can load these things up with the products that will then be safe and decontaminated for the next day's use. Hypochlorous acid and microfiber, you've heard me talk about in terms of cleaning and decontaminating the masks and the eye protection. And then self-sufficiency. So I was made aware recently that Cunard cruise ships are self-sufficient in their cleaning products. So they don't have lots of little boats going out to them, delivering them bleach and all other cleaning products. They have a hypochlorous generator on each deck, and they produce their own cleaning product at point, however much they need. And it's quite self-sufficient. Hypochlorous acid has the same effective cleaning as bleach, but is a lot less harmful. So you also reduce the risk from COSH requirements as well. So that's something else that we're trying to look at, piloting that as well. So current activity, as I say, hypochlorous acid, UVC and ozone. Bolle, so Bolle are the company that make ski goggles. They also make safety goggles, and they are making a bespoke product for health and care workers. They came to a number of meetings with us, and they looked on the fact that a lot of the feedback was their existing products are very nice, but they've got lots of little cutouts and little grooves, and they're embossed and embellished with Bolle and stuff. And all the IPC criticism was that they are difficult to clean because of the build-up of debris and everything else in them. So they are making, as I say, a bespoke product. It's due to get a prototype out this year, and they look like really smart cycling glasses that wrap around your face. You can put clip-in prescription lenses into them. You can also put a strap onto them, and you can put seals on them for aerosol generating. And also, if you don't want that and you want to wear your own spectacles like I do, you can get a box section which hangs on the same frame, and they fit over the top of your existing glasses. So that's something quite cool. Again, I accept the fact they'll probably get stolen, but it is a much better product for health and care workers. The mask we've already touched on with the P3 mask. Like I say, we still need more than just those two, so this transparent one and that. So there are a company, Design Reality, we're going to go and have a conversation with, who have got something that they've made specifically for health and care settings as well. And that thing in the bottom on the left-hand corner, if you'd noticed on the first slide that I put up, Claire Nash, who some of you may know, is a nurse up in Birmingham, and she was sat in that when we took it out on the roadshow because we took it to 5 different locations. It's an epi shuttle. It is for transporting people that may have serious burns, but predominantly in health and care, they may have highly contagious infectious disease or the risk of it. And what normally happens currently is they present at the front door, they then get put onto a trolley, they get wheeled all through the hospital, they do some tests, etc., and then we find out that they've got Ebola, COVID, or anything else, which then means that that department is now shut down. All staff have been put at risk. If you put them in this, you can have positive or negative pressure. It has been crash tested, it's been in helicopters, it's been in airplanes and ambulances, and it reduces the risk. People around can care for the person. Those blue discs that you see there are panels you take off, and it's got long sleeve type gloves, so you can do and administer drugs, you can take blood tests, you can do everything you want through that without being exposed to any risk yourselves. So you don't have to wear any PPE. Now in Europe, they have bought 2 for each hospital. I think it's in Finland, and that will form part of their quick reaction should anything break out anywhere in Europe, and that they can put those anywhere within 8 hours. So there is a suggestion, you see, that if we move to some of those, it reduces the risk and it keeps departments open. World Health Organization estimate on moving somebody with a highly contagious infectious disease is around about £1 million. Because once you put them in an airplane, once you put them in a helicopter, once you put them in the ambulance, all the PPE that everybody's wearing all around it, you then have to thoroughly decontaminate and clean whatever mode of transport you used, whether that's a plane, helicopter, etc. It's out of action for a significant amount of time. It's quite a high cost. So the suggestion there is, like you say, to look at, they cost about 45,000 euros, yeah, but it could have a significant impact on if there's any other outbreaks of any nasty diseases. So what? Like I say, I think this is my 3rd year of presenting. We're not making the benefits that we should be making. We're not seeing the changes that we should be seeing. So collectively, the things I've talked about there on the 6 items of PPE can generate up to 96,000 tonnes of reduction of carbon, which, as I say, we're 4.5 years away from being on the verge of 80% reduction. That's quite a lot of carbon reduction. Excuse me. 19,000 tonnes of waste. Waste is currently running at about £340 a tonne. In the height of the pandemic, it went up to £1,800 a tonne. That's a lot of cost. We can save £91 million in procurement. So currently, if we go to that table on the right in usage, as I say, that's just under 6 billion gloves being used. There's nobody puts on gloves, or very rarely puts on gloves without an apron, and that's why you've got the apron usage next to it. If you accept my estimate that to don a pair of gloves is about 10 seconds and to doff a pair of gloves is about 10 seconds, and if you put a plastic apron on and try and tie it behind your back, it's about 20 seconds. We're wasting somewhere in the region of 13,000 FTE time every year putting PPE on you don't even need, and creating all the waste that goes with it and the problem for the environment that's associated with it. It's £220 million worth of staff time being wasted wearing inappropriate PPE at a time you don't need to do it. On top of the 40 million that it costs to buy the gloves, so that's 260 million, and it is year on year. If you move that down to a trust level, at a trust, it's 96 FTE, time wasted putting inappropriate gloves on and aprons. £2.4 million wasted, and a procurement saving of 428,000. At an integrated care board level, it goes up 378 FTE time wasted putting things on that aren't required, which is £9.5 million in terms of labour time at £25,000 per head, and it's £1.7 million in terms of procurement spend. So that's a lot of reasons why we need to stop doing what we're doing and change the way we do things, and also move to more reusable. That picture on the top right is something I lifted last Friday. That lady unfortunately got diagnosed with cancer. She is alive and well and has recovered, but she wanted that picture taken. So as you can see, all those things around her are all the single-use plastics that she had used on her during her episodes of care. Now, don't get me wrong, caring for her is great, but we don't need to use all that single-use plastic. Like I say, we've got an apron here. It's 100 washes you can wear an apron. And in between washes, you can actually spray it with hypochlorous acid. Some of you may have seen me actually put one on and spray it before, wipe it down with a cloth. The cloth goes in the laundry. At the end of the day, it will go into laundry every day. But in the North Bristol Trust, where we're talking to them about piloting it in their intensive care unit, they're suggesting what they will do is they will wear it, look after the patient, spray it, wipe it down, hang it at the end of the bed, next person comes in, puts the apron back on. If they did that 8 times, that 100 laundry uses for that apron becomes 800 genuine uses, which then takes 800 single-use plastic aprons out of the equation. And anybody who's heard me speak before, those plastic aprons, I really don't understand them. I don't see the point of them. They look like a really cheap bin bag. And if you look at the single reusable one, May Rose Gallagher put this on the other day. So it is a much better quality product. The new ones have got poppers here, adjustable by distance, etc. As I say, you can spray it, you can wipe it down, and it can be laundered 100 times. So it's a much better product. And we can then move away from all that single use that you see on there. I found this and I quite liked it. So the way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. Now, as I say, I've been doing this for 3 years and we're not making the benefits and the progress that we should be making. And it's by appealing to people like yourselves. Go and do the MOOC. Go and look at where you are using single use. Go and look at why you can't use reusables. These can go through any laundry process as long as it's compliant with HTM 0104 or EN 14385 for a quality management system, as long as they reach the levels of thermal decontamination. We've got reusable masks, as I said, we're working on as well, but it is now time to start doing the doing. 4.5 years isn't very long to achieve 80%, and I challenge anybody in the room that thinks we're actually well on our way to an 80% reduction in carbon. There you go. I'm Paul Chivers. That's the end of my presentation.